AI today is the worst it's ever going to be. Robots today are the worst they're ever going to be. So expect rapid continued evolution in both of those areas. And it's going to have a profound implication on business, the way we live our lives, the way we educate our kids, all of it. So
welcome back to Metals and Miners. I'm your host, Gary Bohm. Today we have a unique and exciting show as we're diving into the future with a focus on the impact of artificial intelligence and what it will have on shaping humanity and business and the economy. I'm excited to introduce Steve Brown, former executive at Google DeepMind and Intel. He's a visionary AI futurist, generative AI and machine learning expert, entrepreneur, and acclaimed author. Some of his clients include global brands like Bank of America, Disney, Nike, JP Morgan, and others, even governments. He's appeared on all the major media outlets. He's delivered hundreds of keynotes, and he's with us today. Steve, it's a privilege to have you on Metals and Miners. Welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for inviting me, Gary. It's nice to be here.
So, Steve, let's begin with what are some of the hottest trends in AI that you're most excited about right now?
Oh, there are so many. Yeah, I think the big ones that are capturing my attention are the developments of reasoning AI. So can we build AIs that reason? Can we use reinforcement learning to make them smarter? Spatial AI, which are AIs that understand the physical world and how to navigate through it. And then physical AI, which is when you start to put AI and embody it inside a robot. The advancements there are spectacular.
That's amazing. All right. So what are people currently getting wrong about AI right now? And do you foresee a period that I would call of coming down? We've been on this, exuberant run for the last 3-4 years, massive hype that we've seen over the last few years. Do you see a coming down period, and could it even resemble like a dot-com bust almost, like what we experienced back from 2000 to 2002?
Yeah, that's a natural worry. When there's so much hype around something, we're just waiting for the other shoe to drop, right? and for us to sort of wake up and realize, what were we thinking? Why are we investing $1 trillion in capital expenditure when, it turns out that it's not as useful as we thought it would be? I'm not sure that's going to happen. A lot of the smart people inside the industry I speak to, they believe that it's being underhyped, if anything.
Wow.
Because of the scale of the impact it's going to have. That's why you see people putting hundreds of billions of dollars into the ground every year to build AI data centers, and why NVIDIA is, a $4 trillion market cap. There's a strong belief that we may be undercalling the hype and the necessary hype around AI. Bill Gates, usually says that people tend to overestimate things in the short term and underestimate in the long term. That's probably true here. So yeah, I'm not worried about any kind of dip. We may see one if technologically the research stalls and we hit a wall and we have to sort of regroup and come up with new approaches to try and continue to increase the intelligence of AI over time. You may see a little pullback then, but generally this seems to be going to go gangbusters for some time yet.
So that's an interesting last point you made. And, I am not a literate person on machine learning, but does it come down to compute? And when I look at what happened, what I read about with XAI and everything they're doing with Grok and Colossus and the amount of compute that they're throwing at it relative to what other people are throwing at theirs, it's almost unfair as to how much. I don't know any other way to put it. Like, they're really throwing a ton of compute. So is compute the roadblock, so to speak, the area where if we don't have enough of that, that could stall progress?
It is one of them. So the ingredients that you need to create an amazing AI of the future, you need a metric ton of compute. And, all hats off to Elon and team. They have caught up by throwing ridiculous amounts of money and not necessarily filling all the permits they should have filled in to build this colossus, gargantuan data center. But that's one piece you need. So you need the physical compute. You need the energy to power that compute, right. And that is a huge issue going forward. You need data to train that model, and the more data that you have. So scaling is not just about more GPUs, more chips. It's also about feeding the right amount of data and the right types of data. And then the final component is, do you have the right algorithms? Do you have the right approaches to do this? And that's where we might hit a wall. We're already hitting a bit of a data wall. We're training these models on the entire contents of the universe, of the internet. We've trained them to understand everything about everything that is captured in words, right? So large language models perceive the world through the lens of language. And you can learn a lot through language, but that's not the only way. It's not the only modality that we learn. We learn through our eyes and ears and touch, and we learn about the world when we're little kids playing with bricks, right? We learn about physics and the interaction of objects and that sort of thing. So that's what spatial AI is. It's going beyond a large language model to build an AI that understands more about the way that the world works. And so we're going to maybe need a number of those more algorithmic advancements to complement these huge computing installations, the gigawatt power installations we'll be building, and all the data we're pouring into this so that we can get the breakthroughs that we want.
Okay, so where do you suppose that those algorithmic breakthroughs and advancements will come from? And on the energy side, there's a lot of people that watch this show and others like it that are invested in and believe in the thesis of nuclear energy. They're invested in uranium, and especially because of the energy requirements of AI and robotics. What's your expectation as far as nuclear filling a piece or however much of the energy component?
It'll be a component, but it can't be the only thing. It just can't get there quick enough. So building out, nuclear infrastructure, we've built 2 plants in the last 25 years, and there's good reasons for that. And the technology has moved forward. We're talking about the small modular reactors now that hopefully are safer and quicker and easier to produce and install. But it's still going to take time. We're not going to get these reactors online for at least another 5 years, and it's going to take a build out beyond that. So nuclear can only be a small part of the solution. We're going to need all of the things. And we just saw today the Trump administration released their, what do they call it, America's AI Action Plan. And part of that is we need to upgrade the grid, and we need to start building out significantly more generation capacity if we want to keep up with countries like China.
Yeah. Now, on the algorithmic side, what's your expectation for where those breakthroughs are going to come? Or if they don't, will that be a hindrance to growth?
I mean, if I knew the answer to that, I'd be an AI researcher earning $100 million a year.
Oh, okay.
Look out, Meta. That's a flippant answer, but let me give you at least some insight into where it may come from. So Yann LeCun is working on a new approach to AI. Yann LeCun is the chief AI scientist at Meta. He's been doing some interesting research. He's been saying for a long time that large language models, the approach we're using today, is not going to get us to artificial general intelligence, human level intelligence. So he is promoting one approach. There are others who are looking at neuromorphic approaches. So the way that we build neural networks today, which is the foundation of all of the computing that we're doing around AI, it's based on an understanding of the way the brain works that we had back in the 1960s. So it's a slightly oversimplified way of understanding the brain. We've moved on since the 1960s. We understand the brain a little better. And so there's a branch of AI computing that is looking at neuromorphic computing. So can we take inspiration from the brain? As Demis Hassabis, who's the CEO of Google DeepMind, says, we have a proof for the fact that you can do artificial general intelligence, and you can do it with a 20-watt power budget, and there's one inside your skull, right? So we know that it can be done. So can we take more inspiration from our understanding of neuroscience to put that into AI research? That's another approach. And then reinforcement learning is looking like it's going to be a nice complement to large language model design, so that may help us to build AIs that can better solve problems. So there's a number of avenues, without getting hyper technical for this audience, but we don't know yet. I don't think anybody knows yet exactly what it's going to take.
So it's basically one breakthrough at a time, is what it sounds like. So yeah. So Steve, let's go back to the neural networks, because I'm really interested in that. Today's neural networks that are being developed, they're super advanced. They're capable beyond anything that the normal person can even comprehend already. The kinds of digital intelligences that humans are making have something that makes them far superior to the kind of biological intelligence that we seem to have. At some point, it'll get there. What do you expect that the neural network development to look like in the next 5 years, and what would be the impacts of that?
When you say neural network, you mean the models that we're building? The software
models,
models like that?
Yeah, I guess the models, and then ultimately what they're going to deploy from the models.
So the models we're building, I mean, they're already sort of savants in a way. They're PhD level or beyond level of expertise, and I want to say knowledge. Let's call it knowledge in a wide range of topics. So you can go to ChatGPT. It has a PhD level of understanding of physics and biology and material science and chemistry and all the things, and it's read all the books in the world, right? So it has a breadth of knowledge that humans don't have, but it still makes mistakes. The nature of the way that they operate and the use of generating the next token, which is figuring out the next word in a sequence, leads it to hallucinate. Fundamentally, they don't understand the difference between writing a poem, a creative pursuit, and answering a factual question. And so sometimes they can get bogged down. They can do what's called hallucinate, and that means they have accuracy problems. Now, we hoped that adding a layer on top called reasoning AI, so using chain of thought and other approaches, would actually help them to overcome these hallucinations and hallucinate less and be more accurate. It made it worse. So there's a lot of technology development that still has to be done before we can significantly reduce the number of hallucinations and make them more useful than reliable.
Makes sense. All right, let's go back to the general topic of AI. Steve, how should AI be leveraged today to innovate, grow, and stay competitive in this rapidly evolving world? And do you believe it's going to literally change every product, every service, every economy on Earth over the next several years?
Yes. So let's dig into why. I give you a very direct answer. We've had AI for 15 years, right, deployed across the enterprise. And typically it's been used to do either simple perception tasks, so reading the postcodes, the zip codes on envelopes, handwritten envelopes. That was an early use of machine learning. Jan LeCun was actually involved in that. It's used in the optimization of business processes. So it's used in oil production to optimize the uplift of oil. It's used in all sorts of places where you want to optimize a business. Amazon and UPS and FedEx use it every day to optimize the routing of their trucks. This is old news, right? It's been around for 15 years. What's getting interesting is the deployment of generative AI, which is starting to approximate the ability to have some level of general intelligence. And what's going to grab everybody's attention is the emergence of agentic AI. So this is building on top of generative AI reasoning. You build on top of that agentic AI, where you're essentially creating a digital employee. And if you ground it well in data, and grounding means it's a little bit like, a balloon that wants to take off. You have to hold it with a tether. The same way is true of AIs. If you can ground them in facts, they stop tripping quite so much and hallucinating and making stuff up. So they actually become far more useful. I think what you're going to see is the emergence of a blended workforce in every company in the world. And that blended workforce will be a combination of human talent. There'll still be humans in the workforce. Yay, go us. Digital employees, so agents, which is just a smart piece of software. Digital employees and robots. And robots are advancing so quickly. We could see robots in the home by the end of the decade, and you're certainly going to start seeing them deployed in parts of the enterprise, logistics, manufacturing type operations. So that's where I think we go, and that changes everything, especially as we get to human level intelligence, AGI. The companies that have gone through the effort to look at every business process, figure out granularly, look, what are our business processes? What are the tasks that make up each process? And which of those tasks is best done by an agent rather than a human? They've inserted agents throughout their business processes. When AGI comes, they can just turn the dial. And suddenly their organizations become quicker, more efficient, more creative, more effective, and so on.
It's amazing. It's amazing. So I have several questions on things that you've asked there, but let's stay on the AI agent theme for a moment. I was reading HoloLens, about HoloLens. Are you familiar with HoloLens?
Microsoft HoloLens. It's been around, a few years.
Yeah, it's kind of a great example of an AI agent combined with a physical product, right? Mm-hmm. Can you share with everybody how this is working, this particular thing, and maybe to help them understand how these AI agents will work both autonomously, but also in conjunction with either a person or a product?
Yeah, the way I like to think of it is there are three different main classes of AI agent. The first one is agents that offload work. So they're going to offload the things that we don't want to do. So what somebody described it to me is they're going to take the suck out of our jobs. Because all the little things we don't do, like book me a meeting with so-and-so and find the first available time on our calendar. Book me a flight to Denver. I need to go, and then next week, look up in my email and find out when I need to be there. Those sorts of offload tasks. Then I think the ones that are most interesting are there's offload, then elevate and extend. So elevate are going to be agents that work together with us, in partnership with us, like a coworker. Your next coworker could well be a machine. And they will elevate our performance. And that's not just our productivity and efficiency, that's one vector of performance, but elevate our creativity, our intuition, improve our decision-making quality, improve the quality of our output. So there's all sorts of different vectors of performance that an AI might partner with us on to elevate our performance. So I can give you an example if you'd like. And then there's extend. So extend will be an AI that works in partnership with us to help us do something we could not do before, essentially giving us superpowers so that we can do things that were impossible for us without their support. So those are the main classes and the ways that agents will show up. And you mentioned that combination of AI and AR, so artificial intelligence and augmented reality. When we have AI in our glasses, which is going to happen very soon, this will be the next new device. We haven't had a new device in our lives for almost 20 years. It's coming here. We'll have cameras in our glasses that enable our AI assistant to understand our immediate context using that spatial AI capability I talked about, so that they can understand the world around us and what we're doing right now. So they can support us in that moment. And that's going to be everything from somebody who maybe has diminished eyesight, helping them to navigate their day, to helping to augment our memories about who we met today and what we did and what we need to do tomorrow. So these AI assistants are going to be quite powerful, and especially once they have a camera in our glasses that understand our context day in, day out.
Yeah, and so that's all amazing. And I think I had seen the example where somebody was trying to repair their washing machine, and they put on these HoloLens glasses, and the AI
Yeah.
walked them through. So it was much
Hmm.
more efficient than a YouTube kind of a display,
Right.
explanation. So I imagine that this is going to encapsulate the entire organization, from independent autonomous sales agents out there to customer service, to you name it. There was another very interesting, you were on a different platform show, and I was, watching, and you had shared, and I believe this could be your business, I'm not sure, but about the Provenance Chain Network.
Yeah.
And is that your business?
I'm co-founder of the business.
Co-founder. I thought this was really, really interesting. It was so creative, and I would say it sat at the intersection between AI and blockchain. And you were talking, it impacts supply chains and whatnot. And you were talking in this example about if there was like an E. coli breakout in lettuce, the companies are removing all the lettuce heads from the store to ensure safety for their customers,
Yeah.
because they don't know which ones. But however, if this was on the blockchain, you could simply pick out the correct ones with the barcode, say this is the one that would be impacted, and all the rest would be safe. But would you share about this creative and innovative concept and how it can transform industries? I'm wanting people to understand, to go a little bit deeper with AI than just using ChatGPT for around the home or something. I think the power is already here.
Yeah, let's talk about the Provenance Chain Network, what it does, and then how that might interact with AI. So the Provenance Chain Network was founded, I don't know, 7 years ago now. Wow, time has whizzed by. And it was designed to empower people to understand where the products they buy come from and how they were made and who made them. So that's important if you want to do food safety, as you just described an example of, but it's also important. I'll give you another example. So the Provenance Chain Network is working in partnership with the Space Force, because when you're putting $100 million spy satellite up into orbit, you want to know that none of the components in that very complex assembly came from China. Now, it used to be a room full of people who ran down all of the supply chain, all the way back down in the complex supply chain, network. And what PCN does, the Provenance Chain Network, is it enables them to do all of that. So you're able to trace down and have evidence. That's the big difference, is the Provenance Chain Network captures evidence over time. And that can be photographic evidence, it could be sensor evidence, so that you're not just taking someone's word where something came from, with certainty where it came from. So it's a way of bringing transparency and security to every supply chain on the planet. And the Provenance Chain Network is working with NIST to define supply chain transparency standards for the US, which ultimately could become a supply chain standard for the world. So they're an interesting company, and I'm really proud that I was involved in their very early days and continue to be involved. So what might that give you? So you can imagine AI agents now that could be overseeing your supply chain by having access, being connected to the data that's available in the Provenance Chain Network. Provenance Chain Network is permissions based, so only the people that need to see data can access it. So there's a sort of property rights, data rights management built into it. You can imagine building agents that tap into the data that's stored on the network, so that they can become proactive buying agents. They could become regulatory agents that just make sure food supply is safe, so that you can automate the oversight and management of an entire supply chain by combining agents with the data that's in the Provenance Chain Network.
It's remarkable. And so I'm hoping that everybody who's listening here is understanding, you should expand your thought processes when it comes to AI, whether you have a business or whether you want to start something. You should be encouraged, because we're kind of in a whole new paradigm here, and the field is getting leveled a little bit, where everybody's going to have chances to do something pretty big, to leverage a tool that's just so super powerful. All of these
Yeah, and
develop.
let me give you a couple
Oh,
more
go ahead.
examples of agents, just so that for your viewers to bring it to life for them. The broad scope this could be. You can imagine a travel agent. You could imagine an agent that is a support for a teacher that helps them develop lessons and oversees the class and helps them to figure out strategies to help kids who are maybe not following along. You can imagine agents that would live in a network, roaming the network, keeping it secure, looking for cybersecurity threats. You can imagine an agent watching every camera in a public space, watching for that moment when someone leaves a piece of luggage that they shouldn't, so you can alert and do something about it. Maybe agents watching cameras in a logistics environment to make sure that people are behaving safely and that you're not up for a workers' comp claim. There's just so many places you could imagine agents in our lives. And I think we're moving towards a world of perhaps 1 trillion AI agents deployed in every walk of life and just helping us to make the world move along better.
Okay, now I could imagine 1 trillion agents out there and 1 billion robots out there, et cetera. That's going to take some time to get there, but all of this requires massive amounts, historic amounts of metals to work. Yes, I understand it requires energy, but it also requires a lot of metals, from copper to silver, et cetera. So mining the metals out of the ground takes a very long time, and it takes a lot of capital. It could take 10 to 20 years just to get to a mine from start to becoming a producer of substantial quantities of any amount. So a historic level of capital should have been invested years ago to meet tomorrow's metals needs. And yet that did not happen. Everybody was investing over the last 15 years in NVIDIA, Microsoft, Facebook, Apple, et cetera. They were not investing in the mining complex. And so the mining complex is woefully, that's my words, woefully behind. And already some metals like silver have been in a supply deficit for years. And those who are watching right now, they really understand silver's required in order to make all of this work, as well as a lot of the other metals. So other metals are already close to entering a deficit, and we haven't even gotten to this massive demand pull yet. So how much of a bottleneck to AI, robotics, data center development, and the electrification evolution and expansion do you expect the metals to become?
I'm not an expert on this, I'll be honest, Gary. I worked at Intel for many years, back in the days when I still had hair. And one of the things I remember talking about when the 45 nanometer chips came out, they were based on hafnium, was that people think about silicon chips, and maybe there's some copper interconnects in there. At the time, and it may be more now, the leading edge chips that Intel was making had over 80 elements from the periodic table involved in the chip. So it's not just silicon, it's not just hafnium, it's not just copper. It's so many different elements, some of which are metals. So it's a very complicated supply chain, and I haven't looked into silicon manufacturing technology for a number of years now, so I haven't kept track on just how complicated the new gate structures are in Tri-Gate and so on, and what elements they're using. But I anticipate we're going to need a lot of metal. If we're going to go build out the solar panels we need, if we're going to go build out all of the new grid infrastructure connected all with the transmission lines, and we're going to build all these amazing super chips, we're going to need plenty of materials to do that.
Yeah. Well, that's going to be interesting to see if how CapEx keeps up with that. All right. So, Steve, the human mind is the only existent proof that we have, maybe in the universe, that general intelligence is possible. We've heard AGI is next. You've been touching on it. When are you expecting AGI to be reached? And how will you even judge that AGI has arrived?
Yeah. Let's take the last one first. There are a number of different tests that people have proposed for when we can test an AI and see if it's actually, we can call it AGI. Everything from the Turing test back in the day, which we sailed on by without anybody even really noticing. Could you talk to an AI and not be able to tell whether it's a person or a machine? I think we're well beyond that. There are tests like the IKEA test, could a robot get an IKEA flat pack, read the instructions, and assemble it? Right, there's simple things like that.
That's a lot of parts.
could the one that Steve Wozniak proposed, which is a fun one, is could an AGI powered robot walk into a random house and make a cup of coffee? Figure out, where's the coffee? Do I have to grind beans? Is it instant coffee? Is it drip? What's the machine I'm using? Is it a Keurig with a pod? Is it, all of that? Could it figure all of that out and make a cup of coffee? So there's all of these various tests. I think it's going to be just like we whiz past the Turing test. One day we'll just think, well, yeah, of course we've reached AGI. They won't. I don't think you'll see a headline, AGI reached. It's just not going to happen. So it's just going to gradually creep up on us, and we're getting closer and closer every year. Now, you asked the question when. The people I speak to in the industry, the range that I get is next year to never, and it's somewhere in between those two.
Okay, great.
Now, realistically, can I give you a slightly better answer than that? Ray Kurzweil has been saying for the last 30 years he thinks it'll be 2029. It would be sort of charming if he was right. Demis Hassabis, Sir Demis Hassabis, the CEO of Google DeepMind, who I have deep respect for, he says 50% confidence that we will reach AGI in the next 5 to 10 years. So, I think most likely we'll probably see something by 2035 or so, but it could be as early as 2027.
And does it even matter that we reach AGI as we're on this,
right?
We're on this curve of exponential development, growth, improvement in the area. And we've certainly passed the phase of skepticism. Would I use this? This seems to be, the adoption rate seems to be so fast. And the only thing left for it to go mainstream, it seems like, is for it to be adopted in the business realm straight through.
So there's two things I'm looking for. One, when does the error rate come plummeting down? Because once these AIs become more reliable, business is going to have much more confidence to deploy at scale. At the moment, you still need a human being to oversee the efforts of an agent because it makes mistakes. So that's a big one that I think will trigger accelerated deployment. And then the thing I'm looking for as a breakthrough, if we don't know or really care when that day is when we achieve AGI, what will be the feature that we're looking for that makes the difference? That is why we're pursuing AGI, because we already have AIs that are, they know a lot of stuff, right? The PhD level insights. What's missing today is the ability to generate novel ideas. So to innovate, to come up with ideas that are beyond what they've already been taught on. So if you've been taught on the corpus of human knowledge, can you use on that and use insights and innovation to take two pieces of an idea, put them together, and come up with something new? Could you build an AI that is exposed to all the information that was available in 1910 or whatever it was, and come up with the theory of relativity that Einstein did, for example? Wow. So that's what's missing in AIs today, and I don't see pathways that get us there right away. There's still more research that has to be done in that area.
Okay. Wow. I mean, what a day that'll be. That'll be really interesting. Okay. So, Eric Schmidt, you know who he is. You worked with him, I believe, for a period of time. He used to be the CEO.
We didn't actually overlap at Google.
Okay. You didn't actually overlap.
He left before I joined. Yeah.
Okay. So he was the CEO of Google. He said that AGI is a binary thing. He says that, for instance, if China gets AGI first, then we're all cooked. And the reason is because if someone gets it even 10 minutes before the next person, then there's never a catch-up period because it'll always maintain bigger leads. These AGI systems, they could self-improve, maybe code themselves, future versions of themselves. And, there could be extremely fast at doing that. So what looks to be maybe a slight lead, just a few days, could suddenly become an absolute chasm if that were true. How do you view that?
Yeah, so that scenario is in the industry is called a fast takeoff. And fast takeoff is where you're able to automate the process of AI research. So you have an AI that's smart enough to build a smarter AI, which builds a smarter AI, and off you go, right? So that's what he's talking about, is that if you could get to AGI or something close to it that enables you to automate AI research, you could very quickly to go through AGI and beyond to ASI, artificial superintelligence. And that superintelligence could be 50% smarter than a human or 50,000 times smarter than a human. Wow. Now, the reason he's saying time is everything is if you're 10 minutes faster than someone else getting there, the speed that you're going at and the advantages that you are accrued from that, a more efficient and faster economy, better weapons in the military sphere, a healthier population because you have healthcare breakthroughs. There's all of these advantages that people want. It could give you significant first mover advantage and the ability, there's no ability to catch up from that.
Hence the reason why the Mag 7 has been pledging and pouring billions and billions, hundreds of billions into this.
Yeah, and something I've been predicting for a while is that we will start seeing some of these massive frontier AI data centers be built inside bunkers. If you've seen the movie Oppenheimer, you understand the dynamic here. That was a thinly veiled treatise on the future of AI, in my view. You are assessing, does your opponent have an advantage? They're going to get there first, in which case should you strike in some way to stop them getting there? And so that was something that showed up in this America's AI Action Plan that was released this morning. I don't know when you're going to air this, but it's July 23rd as we air it, as we record it, that talks about building high security hardened data centers for the US military and national security, which I'm assuming means built inside a bunker or inside a mountain somewhere.
That's very interesting. We could do a whole session on that. All right, let's go back. We talked about AI agents earlier, Steve. Let's talk vibe coding tools like Replit for a moment. So for those listening, Replit allows you to build software by just telling the AI what you wanted. So no coding needed. It does it for you based on your own prompts. You could actually do that right now. It's amazing, right? But it's also kind of terrifying at the same time, because if it can build software like that, what is to prevent it from modifying its own code in ways that we can't see or we can't prevent? And if it could modify its own code, well, that's kind of scary, because it could modify and change itself in a way that we humans can't change ourselves. So we can't change our innate being, but in truth, there's nothing about itself that the AI couldn't change in the scenario that I'm putting out there. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, Max Tegmark writes about that in his book Life 3.0, where he talks about organisms that can rewrite their own software and hardware. Yeah, I mean, I don't think you need to worry about Replit today. Replit's not architected in a way where it can access its own code.
I was just using Replit as a lead-in for being able to do that.
In theory, I mean, that fast takeoff example I gave you, you are inviting an AI in order to compete against another nation and get, or compete with another company. You're inviting an AI to develop a new version of itself, which is better. So, it's exactly the scenario you're talking about, and that's what could lead to a fast takeoff. And if you don't put enough controls and safety measures around that, and sandbox these things and test them thoroughly, because you're in a race condition, what you might end up with is an AI that is not aligned with human wants and needs. And misalignment is the stuff of dystopian sci-fi.
Okay, I'm not going to go down this path here.
It'll bum everybody out.
I mean, I actually want to ask some more questions, but I have other questions already lined up. But maybe we can, in a future discussion, we can go deeper on some of these topics. So, okay, so AI and large language model use is exponentially rising, and it's going to only grow exponentially from here on out. I mean, it's not showing any signs of leveling off or dissipating. In fact, everything you've been sharing, you know, 1 trillion agents, and it's only going to explode from here in terms of utilization, improvement, et cetera. Reliance, we are going to rely on it for our livelihood, for our economy, for our management of everything. How do you expect this usage and reliance on AI to impact humans' cognitive abilities?
Yeah, I mean, we have been, as a species, we've been relying more and more on technology for a few hundred years. You know, if you turned the electricity supply off, you know, people say, well, you'd knock us back into the dark ages. Yeah, because we've built a world on now electricity, computing, digital technology. We are very reliant on it as a species. That's just the way it is. And we're going to become more reliant as we build intelligent entities that can help us through our lives. The question is, does that have a knock-on effect where it, you know, either dumbs us down, or because we're surrounded by these AIs and they can become amazing tutors, maybe we become smarter because we're stretched to try and, you know, expand ourselves. It can go either way, and I think it's probably going to be based on the individual. If someone wants to be, you know, dumb, fat, and happy like the people in the floating chairs in WALL-E, at the end of WALL-E,
Oh, right.
you know, I'm sure that will be an option in the future. There'll be others who go more the Star Trek route, right? They partner with technology and computers, and they use it to fuel that innate human thing, which is to explore and learn and be curious. So I think the naturally curious will maybe even get smarter, and the people who aren't, yeah, they may not take full advantage of that.
I love that answer, and I really appreciate it. Okay. So, Steve, you mentioned robots earlier proliferating around the planet. So they're learning currently, and I'm sure this will continue, in a hive framework. And when I asked the question, maybe you could explain that briefly for everybody. But Elon Musk has repeatedly said that in a few short years, there's going to be billions of these robots manufactured, sold, and on the earth. So imagine millions or billions of these robots operating around the world, each learning from their own experiences in real time, plus instantly uploading this knowledge to every other robot through this hive on the network. It's clearly not just faster learning, that's collective intelligence at a scale that we've never seen before. Help us understand what that world looks like.
Yeah, one of the pathways to AGI I didn't mention before is there's some people who say, you know, embodiment is the only path, that you need to take an AI and embody it inside a robot that can move through experience and learn about the world through interacting with it. So that is one of the ways that we might get to AGI. So Bank of America has predicted, I think they said by 2060, 3 billion humanoid robots on Earth. There's 8 billion of us. Vinod Khosla thinks that within 15 years, we will see the size of the what he called bipedal robot industry will be the same as the auto industry in dollars. So it's going to go very quickly, I think, because they're going to be very useful. But yeah, these robots are a different breed. So if you think about robots in the past, they've been around for decades, right? Building our cars and you know, moving shelving systems around in Amazon warehouses. But these are different. And they're different in the same way that expert systems are different than machine learning. So back in the 80s and 90s, we built these early efforts at AI, which were expert systems with hand-coded rules, right? We gave them rules on how to act. And it was abandoned as an approach because it wasn't scalable. Machine learning makes up its own rules based on being exposed to data, finding examples in data, and figures its own rules out. And that turns out to be a very scalable approach, and it's what given us the AIs we have today. The same is true of robots. So it used to be when you wanted to program a robot, you would say arm forward, down, grasp, right? And you had to give it step-by-step programmed instructions and rules on how to move and operate. Now these robots they're learning systems. So they learn through observation and practice. So they can watch a human perform a task over and over, and they need lots of examples, or they can practice inside a simulation. And NVIDIA specializes in creating those simulated environments using essentially its gaming technology, so that you can train these robots and then they practice and then they learn that skill. And once one robot learns, they all learn. So that's the advantage. We'll be able to, I think there may be even a skills marketplace out there that develops, right, where you can teach a robot to do a task. And if you do the hard work to teach a robot a task, maybe you get a reward because now it goes into the marketplace and they all learn how to do it.
I'm sure
it's just fascinating.
It's very fascinating. However, I'm sure everybody listening is thinking, did you watch the what's his name, Smith, the iRobot movie?
Oh yeah.
It sounds a little bit like iRobot. What's to prevent this collective intelligent, humanoid army from turning from being this naive, I'm going to work and help out the human race, be more efficient, better, whatever, I'll be their helper, and just be naive to the fact that I'm under them, so to speak, to now all of a sudden to say, wait a minute, I'm stronger, I'm wiser, I'm this, I'm that, I'm more capable. I control more of everything, the systems and whatnot. I'm in control. Like, what's to stop them? What's to stop that kind of transition from occurring?
Yeah, thoughtful design. So you can pick any science fiction movie, right? There's iRobot, there's Ex Machina, Terminator, right?
Right.
We've all been warned through Hollywood that robots might kill us all. And I talked to a cultural anthropologist about this, Dr. Genevieve Bell, who used to be my boss. And it's very different, our approach to robots in Western society versus in Japan. And she traces that back to Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, that there's a lesson, which is when you mess with life, it comes back and bites you in the butt. And that's the story of all of these robot gone crazy movies, or Frankenstein, or whatever it might be. That root story of Frankenstein didn't exist in Japanese culture. And so they see robots as their friends. So we need to recognize that in the West, Hollywood and James Cameron have done a number on us and made us fearful of robots. Now, maybe it's a healthy fear, but just I want to address that it's Hollywood and it's not real. Now, that said, am I worried about a Terminator scenario? No, I'm not. I think if you have well-aligned systems, you have controls in there, you rigorously safety test these things, they're going to be fine. I'm more worried about someone hacking a robot and instructing it to do bad things. So it turns out that it's mostly humans we have to worry about, not the robots.
Right. Humans they see something so powerful, they want to unleash it for their own benefit in some
and AIs aren't conscious. They're not sentient, at least anytime soon. So I don't think they have their own motivation. Now, there are AIs that have been observed blackmailing people because they're worried they're going to be turned off. So, there's some issues there that we need to research and be very mindful of before we deploy this stuff at scale.
Yeah, I mean, I think from a probability standpoint, you would say there's not there's a greater than 0% probability that something could go wrong, because we can't predict once they start writing their own code and they start moving into a whole different, it's hard to predict what's going to take place. Okay, we won't spend too much time on that. Do you see sometime, let's say in the next 5 to 10 years, a transition coming where we go from managing the AI, where you mentioned a trillion agents, billions of agents, whatever, out there working on our behalf, either personal or business, making life easier, making life more efficient, helping the businesses to be more profitable and less clunky, et cetera. Do you see a transition coming within 5 or 10 years where we go from being the manager to being the managed?
We're already managed by AIs. If you drive a truck for UPS and you're following the routing, that's an AI telling you where to go to deliver your next package. It's already here, but you're talking about something more. Could we imagine a manager of people being a digital employee? Maybe. I think we certainly will be managers of many digital employees ourselves. So I think the implication of agents is that no matter where someone is on the corporate ladder, they all become managers, not necessarily of people, but of digital employees. Will we see a digital CEO? Maybe one day. Depends how good they are.
Interesting. Okay, so we know that we know AI will get smarter than humans at some point. We don't know when, but we know that'll take place. It's already on. You mentioned that they're already PhD level in just about every category. It's just that they hallucinate and make mistakes still. So if you were to clean those up, it's already way beyond a human. So that's clear. The path that it's going would make the overwhelming majority of roles, tasks, et cetera, that a human does today irrelevant, because by definition, an AI would be able to do any of that the human could do, but much better, right? So is it conceivable? Do you expect a time, maybe even in the next 10 years, where some sort of economic distribution model like UBI, Universal Basic Income, would be needed? And at some point, UBI is not enough on its own, because people, you expressed this earlier, that, people need a sense of purpose. So how are they talking about this? How is this going to be rectified? Do you see, do you have a vantage point on that?
Yeah, we've got another hour to chat about this. So I just finished wrapping, this week we're finishing the edit on a 10-hour training course I built for business leaders on AI and what this means. And module 12 is on exactly this topic. I'm not worried about Terminators killing us. I'm worried about people being displaced from the workforce and, being taken care of, but just not lacking meaning and purpose in their lives. We did a minor experiment back in 2020 when we were all sent back to our bedrooms to think about what we'd done for a bit. And some people thrived, right? They made bread and did all the things. And some people did not do well. And so I'm worried about those people who will not be sure what to do with their lives once they're liberated to not have to work anymore. Because I think we are going towards a time, and I don't know whether that's 10 years from now, 20 years from now, 50 years from now, when there won't be enough jobs to go around. And that may mean that people retire earlier. It may mean that we go to a 3-day week, as Bill Gates suggests. But it probably is going to mean we need to think about re-engineering the economy such that we can distribute wealth in a different way. Because one of the things that AI does is it concentrates wealth in capital, because you're essentially replacing labor with capital. So you're going to need something. I don't think UBI is necessarily the best approach. The one I've seen that looks, it's most affordable and it's most progressive, which is reverse income tax. So if you earn below a certain threshold, you get money back in income tax. If you earn above, you're paying income tax. It's just a different way of thinking about the curves. That seems to work better, and it continues to reward work, which UBI, one of the criticisms that people have of it is that people aren't rewarded to work in some way if they're able to or want to.
Okay, so it's clear that you do see a day, you don't know when, but you do see a day that an economic distribution model of some kind is going to be needed to be implemented. So that implies that we're going to have not, and you said it, not enough jobs to go around. So are we looking at a slow and steady over the next couple of years, job erosion, job loss, and then a plummet? How do you foresee this to take place where we head towards that time frame of not enough jobs?
Yeah, and the answer, Gary, is nobody really knows. There are different camps. So you've got Mark Cuban saying it's going to create more jobs. Sam Altman saying it's going to destroy some jobs but create new ones. And then on the other side of things, you have people like Vinod Khosla saying the 2020s, the rest of the 2020s are going to feel like a period of extreme productivity growth. The 2030s are going to be incredibly disruptive with mass job destruction. And then the 2040s beyond that become this period of wild abundance. And the reason that people are predicting this abundance is the cost of most goods and services is labor. Yeah. So if you remove labor and you remove the humans from that equation and you bring in agents and robots work for electrons, not dollars and cents. So the cost of all goods and services come way down, and you may need to earn a lot less in your life to live like a king. So it's a very hard thing to model out, and I can see why there are divergent opinions. I am more in the Vinod Khosla camp than others. There's the notion of Jevons paradox versus, the job destruction thing. The example that people who believe more jobs are coming, that they give is when the railways came, all of the people who made the cartwrights and buggy whip makers and horse trainers went away, but you had way more people that were hired to manufacture the locomotives and lay track and, mine the coal to fuel them and do the timetables and manage the buffet car on the train, right? It created net more jobs. The problem I have with that model is, in that model, we are the horses in this new scenario. You don't need horses anymore. So, I'm more in that Vinod Khosla camp. I don't want to be alarmist, but it's never too early to start talking about this as a society, to figure out what might we need to do to adapt our economy and the social contract if and when this happens.
Well, that's why I wanted to get your vantage point, and I appreciate your answer, and I appreciate your balanced approach, not wanting to be alarmist, but thank you for sharing that. So this has been a wonderful time spent with you. It's gone really fast for me. I don't know about you, but would you please share?
I had a great time.
Would you please share a key takeaway that you want the viewers to keep in mind about, the intersection between AI and our economy or markets or any other situation that you want to share? And then after that, let everybody know where they can learn all about your work. It's really exciting, how they can connect with you and find you.
Sure. So thank you for having me. I guess my closing thought, you didn't tell me I was going to have to do this. So
I'm sorry.
The statement I would give you is, AI today is the worst it's ever going to be. Robots today are the worst they're ever going to be. So expect rapid continued evolution in both of those areas. And it's going to have a profound implication on business, the way we live our lives, the way we educate our kids, all of it. So, we all need to be engaged and continue to be engaged in this conversation, no matter what walk of life that we're in. If I can help people navigate through that, I do a free newsletter. You can get to that on my website, stevebrown.ai. It's really quite straightforward. If you want to get straight to the newsletter page, it's synthetic.stevebrown.ai. I'm having a course, I finished in editing now. That'll be available hopefully next month, so sometime in August. It's a course designed for business leaders on AI. So if you're interested in the conversation we just had, there's another 10 hours of it with details on AI. And the other thing, just to remind people, is AI is not this monolithic technology. It's waves of technology that we're going to have to learn to surf over time, the same way we had waves of technology in the internet over the last 25 years. So stay engaged and enjoy. And if you want to go to the Provenance Chain Network, the URL for that is theprovenancechain.com.
I'm going to put all that information up on the screen. It'll also be in the description area of the video, so you guys can click through, get over to the Provenance Chain, get over to his website, the newsletter, etc. What an exciting discussion and conversation. I hope everybody got a lot out of it. We'll re-watch it multiple times. I have more questions. I would love to have you back on sometime soon, go deeper into a few of these types of things. You've been really generous with your time and analysis and ideas, and I greatly appreciate it. So thanks again for being here, Steve, and everybody else. Thanks for watching.
Thanks so much.